At my job, I've bought software that costs tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and those companies use CrashPlan for their backups, and I also use it at home. So it scales from micro to huge, and it just works, which is really nice. So Andrew Rentz here worked for Apple, did desktop engineering, made sure the CrashPlan was installed and was backing up Apple, and then I guess CrashPlan poached him, which is sort of a success story in itself, right?
Yeah.
Andrew.
Cool, thank you. It's more like I called them and said, please, can I have a job? So yeah, my name's Andrew Rentz. I'm going to talk to you guys about choosing different cloud backup strategies and what kind of factors you should use underneath the hood of both of those things. Just to give you a little bit of background about Code 42 and CrashPlan, we're actually 3 products as of today. So we're CrashPlan Green. Has anybody been downstairs and seen the giant inflatable cloud with the cool LED lights and all that stuff? That's our consumer side. That's where we have the most users, obviously, that all back up to our 200 petabyte plus consumer cloud. We're also CrashPlan Pro, which is actually built for small and medium-sized businesses to just have a cloud target to be able to quickly send their data and get it protected. It's a really great solution for smaller companies, dental offices, doctors, optometrists, architecture firms, that kind of thing. And then Pro E. And Pro E is all about the full-featured version of CrashPlan, where you guys can actually build your own clouds and start mixing and matching and really choose where your data is going to be stored. It's what I live and breathe. So my actual job title at Code 42 is Principal Architect. So I go into different enterprises when they're looking to implement CrashPlan, and we choose, based on their criteria, what would work best. Is it private cloud? Should it be on our appliances? Can they use their existing storage? That kind of thing. And so I go around the country and I kind of do this many different ways, and it's always unique and different at every enterprise we go to, which I think is a testament to how flexible CrashPlan is as a product and how well thought out it is from the beginning. So first, what is the cloud? This is, everybody kind of knows what the cloud is. I actually did what any kind of geeky person would do this morning, and I Googled what a cloud was. And apparently, it's a mass of liquid droplets that are frozen and suspended above a planetary object. I'm just kidding. So the cloud is really about finding a solution in the cloud that you can use instead of having services or devices on your network on a typical kind of server and client basis. At Code 42, when we go into enterprises and we talk about business backup and all that kind of stuff, we sell services as an entire solution. So literally, it's a turnkey solution that you can get going and moving with backup. And that's what the cloud is all about. I think that the term cloud kind of came from when there was enough available bandwidth to do things besides buy books on Amazon. You could start pushing data up there or streaming video back. And it's really about utilizing those services up in the cloud, so to speak, so you don't necessarily have to have that infrastructure on premise or build it yourself, that kind of thing. So we got to back up all the way. Why? You notice I said backup, no pun intended. Why would you actually want to protect your machines? A lot of times we have network redirects for your home folder. Anybody here in the audience do portable home directories in OS 10? How'd those work out for you? You like them? No? I thought so. So what backup is all about is continuously protecting all the data that exists on an endpoint and just doing it where the data is created. Gartner, last time I read, said about 60% of corporate data is actually stored on the endpoint device itself. So regardless of email and all the other file servers that exist out there, the data is actually on those laptops. So what we do is we say, protect the edge, protect where the data is created, do it continuously, do it invisibly so you can stay out of the way of that user, and you'll be able to do it. And there's a lot of other corollary benefits you get from having a backup solution like that. It makes migration a lot easier. If you're moving from Windows to Macs, hopefully, right? Something like CrashPlan is cross-platform, so we can just move that data right across. You also get disaster recovery and redundancy. How many of you guys have business set up here in the Bay Area? A couple of you? Yeah, a few? Yeah. There's never earthquakes or other types of natural disasters here, right? So it's always good to have this kind of stuff. The one that I actually think is most important for why you'd want backup is that we're all human, and humans make mistakes. I've deleted my own files as recently as last week by accident, where I did a save instead of save as, and OS X was nice to say, hey, are you sure you want to replace this thing? And I'm like, yes, definitely. Oops, right? So that's all about protecting that data continuously and being able to survive our human nature and just making it work. So protect the edge, that's kind of the theme there. So what is not backup? I put this slide in here just to highlight that it's a unique situation, and some of these things you may or may not agree with me, but I wanted to bring them up here and talk about a few of them. So how many of you guys have workgroup file servers? Some AFP share? Yeah, everybody, right? Why do you think I wouldn't say that that is backup? Remember what I just said before about us being human? If you tell a human you must do something so that data is protected, it will fail eventually, right? So file servers are a great solution for putting stuff up there and then getting it back down again, but it's not a true backup. It's not working invisibly and working all the time and doing all that. Dropbox, BoxNet, SugarSync, these other cloud sync kind of tools, they're also not backup for the exact same reason. The other thing about Dropbox is it's only a certain subset of your data. It's not everything. So unless you knew exactly what data you needed before it disappeared and put it in Dropbox, you're not going to get that data back, right? iCloud, I still put this up here because iCloud doesn't support all the available devices. You can't run iCloud on your Mac and have all that stuff synced. You get some stuff, you get bookmarks and a few other things. You don't even get the MobileMe WebDAV folder anymore, but it's really not a mature backup solution even on iOS and iPad. So that's still there. Network home directories, you guys are probably all in agreement on that. I've abused portable network home directories many times as a backup solution, and you end up kind of putting all this data on a file share, some XN, or maybe you had, anybody have an Xserve RAID kicking around still, right? Have those things? Really? Wow, awesome. I had one as my iTunes server up until about 6 months ago in my closet, and I finally was like, you know what, this is ridiculous, and I got a 3 terabyte hard drive that is the same capacity. Crazy. So anyway, you would basically send all this data there and then back that up so you'd have a backup, because network home directories are a true sync. There's no versioning, there's no deduplication, there's no encryption, so it's a true sync, and if there's any error in that sync, you kind of lose that data for that user. I put that old hard drive up here, literally. I have a whole shoebox full of these things. Does anybody have a shoebox full of old hard drives, right? Have you ever had to revert to those old hard drives as a backup before? When your hard drive failed or maybe a migration didn't go well? I have. That's not a backup though, because it's not the data that you're working on now. The stuff that I'm doing today is the first thing that I'm going to want back tomorrow when I lose everything, so I can continue to do my work and get it done. So that old hard drive, it might have my old music from college that I took off of Napster or whatever else, but it's not going to have my important work data today. RAID is also not a backup. RAID is about taking a bunch of disks and create a redundant array out of them, but it's not a backup because you don't have versioning. Somebody deletes something, it's of course going to get deleted off the RAID volume as well. rsync I put up here. A lot of times we use, does anybody use rsync to move data from one place to another place and kind of think of it as backup? It totally is, right? I put an asterisk on there though because it's not a backup solution in that you have to input the human capital on scripting it, setting up some launchd agent or whatever else to move the data programmatically, exchange your keys and do all that. So it could be used as a backup solution, but you have to input a lot of things into there to make it really go. And Time Machine. I think Time Machine is a great backup solution. I love that Apple puts it in there. But the biggest failure about Time Machine was it's only built to do and write its data to one destination, which is usually attached to your machine with a FireWire cable. Maybe it's a time capsule, although I've personally gone through 3 or 4 time capsules. I don't have very good luck with those. The biggest issue with Time Machine is if you back up your data to a Time Machine volume, a lot of times it's this external hard drive that's in the same laptop bag that you left in the cab and then now lost all your data, or it's stolen. Or if it's in your house and your house burns down. I actually know a guy in the Midwest, works for a large company, I'll just remain nameless. And he had his house broken into, and they took his laptop, and they took the other Apple device that was sitting right next to it, his time capsule, and he lost all of his data, right? So you really want something where your data is stored off-site, right? So that's my little thing about Time Machine. All right, so why would you want cloud-based endpoint backup, and what do you need to think about that, right? So obviously, the benefit of having a cloud solution is that there's nothing for you to do. It already exists. You just turn it on, hopefully pay for it, right? And then you can have unlimited storage up in the sky. We're not buying an external hard drive that has a given capacity. Turn it on, and the data goes. So it's a real low cost of entry, and it actually will scale to the number of users and devices as you add them. So there's really not much to do up front. It's pretty easy. The concerns always are going to persist with any cloud service provider around security. In the enterprise space, there's a lot of compliance requirements around where the data is created and where it's protected, and wherever it is in the world. I'm thinking of EU safe harbor considerations. And does anybody have any association with data in Australia? They have special data requirements in Australia. If the data is created there, it has to stay there for 6 years. Kind of crazy, right? So there's a lot of stuff. And there's also just a general fear of not having control over your backup data and your destiny in that respect. So it's just that losing control. But trust me, you'd like it. So successful cloud backup checklist. There's different features that different companies offer. Code 42 does all of these things. Really nice stuff around being able to seed your backup data if you have a really big machine. You don't want to wait forever for Comcast to send that up there. Lots of reporting. Is there an option for doing multi-tenant or single-tenant storage? If you're a big enough customer, let's run you on a dedicated volume in our cloud. So maybe you don't want to be a cloud backup in year 2. We can literally unrack it and let you take your cloud home with you. Lots of options in there. Also, disk-to-mail restore is something that's really nice. So if you're sending a bunch of data up to us and, God forbid, everything goes bad and you need to get it back really, really quickly, the fastest way is going to be FedEx, right? So having that option in your back pocket is always a nice thing to kind of have to look for. So with Pro E, we're kind of the best of all worlds, actually. We do public cloud really well, which we'll talk about. We do managed private cloud, which are we never really intended to become a storage company, but when we were building out our cloud, we looked at the industry and we saw NetApp and saw all this different storage, and nothing was really built to do CrashPlan as perfectly as we wanted to. It was also much more expensive. So we went back to the drawing board and designed our own storage hardware, which we used to build out our cloud. Once we were starting to get a little bit of traction in the enterprise space, other companies said, hey, what do you guys use to store that data? And we're like, well, we build these things. Really, would you sell us one? So now it's actually become what we call a managed private cloud appliance. And that's something just like in our public cloud, but we house it on premise and we remotely monitor and manage it. We're going to talk about that too in a second. And then we have option 3, which is the kitchen sink, really. It's a hybrid cloud where we can specifically figure out should this data go on-site or this go off-site, and actually have some options around where data encryption keys are stored and things like that. Regardless of those options with us, you're always monitored and managed by our customer champion team and Code 42 as an organization. So there's other backup solutions out there, or like Dropbox or whatever else. They don't build their own clouds. They just go to Amazon. We build our own clouds, and we're able to take that expertise and that IP and turn it over and give it to you. It's a much better solution that way. So the public cloud. This is the zero infrastructure, zero startup, nothing for you guys to do. You just hit go, and it'll happen. So you can empower end users to sign up themselves, basically be able to restore files to any number of devices. If they have a mobile device, they can attach that to and view data. And a lot of times, either they don't want to have additional services in their own data center, or they're trying to get services out of their data center. They're going to Google Docs. They're doing all these other things. So pure public cloud in that respect would be perfect. So a lot of times they just have an IT strategy that says, we want to be cloud. We're going to do backup to the cloud. The biggest benefit of all this stuff is that there's nothing for you to do. It's ready to go. And you can basically sign up, restore, and view your data from anywhere, right? It's the internet, so to speak, or the cloud, right? And there's no lock-in. So basically, there's less of investment up front, and then you can just kind of expand that across. And in our cloud, at least, it's unlimited data. So if you have a user with 3 terabytes and another user with 15 gigabytes, it all doesn't matter to us and especially you. You just know the number of users, you pay on that, and that's it. That's all you have to do. So the biggest consideration around the public cloud is how much data you create, and is it an okay scenario for you to be able to put that stuff up there. We have some good customer success stories with companies that do public cloud backup. Salesforce.com actually does an on-site master with us, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But to a company like Adobe, they wanted to basically put the onus back onto the end user to sign up, see their data, restore their own files, all that kind of stuff. So a pure cloud solution was perfect for them. So managed private cloud, it's the same considerations, except for whatever reason, they want to control their own data somehow. And the managed private cloud appliances actually accomplish that by looking and feeling and smelling just like our public cloud, except it's housed on premise. So you get all the benefits. And these are how really large enterprises that use the managed private cloud with us can have like one guy that runs, or girl that runs CrashPlan for the entire company. And this happens in really large organizations as well. So again, it's like usually there's a strategy that says, no, we want to own our own data, we want to keep it on premise. And you can actually choose with Pro E. You could use your own storage infrastructure. What we see is a lot of times enterprises are really, they really like this idea of having that, but not having to babysit storage and have different vendors and all this kind of stuff. Just be able to drop this in there, turn it on, and have 90 or a petabyte of our storage in their data centers. So the benefits is that you can basically still have all your data, but not have to babysit storage and do all the setup and everything else. And all of your data is kept within the firewall. So there's nothing that Code 42 could ever do to see or touch or feel your data or anything else. But we do monitor and manage it just like we do all the other nodes in our data center. So literally, in our NOC, if you buy a managed private cloud, it shows up right next to the same exact nodes that we have in our data center. And we just use all the same management techniques and all the same stuff. So who with us uses managed private cloud? Lots of enterprises. It's really surprising to me how much I go into a company and they say, yes, we want to be cloud backup. And then as soon as I start talking about managed private cloud, they're like, yes, I want that too. So we do that for Apple. They have these devices all over the world. And when we say managed private cloud, it doesn't necessarily have to exist on one network, right? We can essentially create a hub and spoke model where CrashPlan can, in the background, basically say, oh, Andrew, you work in China, back up to the China destination, that kind of thing. Target, and some of these other companies, they have really big data. So being able to keep that on their LAN makes a really, really big difference for them. This is the same thing at Nike, too. They have really big data. They have all these design files and everything else. And I went up there to talk about cloud, and they ended up going managed private cloud. And these are all very, very large installations, right? University of Texas, I think, is something like 80,000 devices that are protected on a private cloud. And they still have one person that basically spends a quarter of their time to run CrashPlan for that many users. So you can see the benefit of having a managed service in that respect. So hybrid cloud. This is a really great way to get your data into the cloud, but still maintain a fair amount of control within your own organization. So many times what we do for a hybrid cloud is we say, all right, you're going to target your data to back up to Code 42's data centers around the world, but you're going to run your own CrashPlan master server, and it's going to do a few things. It'll talk to your LDAP, so you can do directory services, authentication, and integration. It'll hold your own encryption keys, and it'll also hold all of your own policies locally. And that's a great way, so you can literally know that there's no mathematical way for even us at Code 42 or whoever else to be able to look and see and restore your data. So if the men in black show up and they want your data and you have an on-site master, it's a bunch of 448-bit blowfish encrypted gobbledygook. There's nothing they can do to do it. They'd have to come back to you to get the keys. This is what we do for a lot of large organizations that want to get their data in the cloud, but still have many, many security concerns. The other thing you can do with a hybrid is start pulling together different topologies, right? Maybe for your organization, private cloud totally makes sense, except for the edge case of all your remote workers. You're like, wait, they're going to have to VPN back into me to then send the data to this data center or anything else. With CrashPlan, we could basically say all of those remote users, we'll put them into a different group, And that group, their destination would be CrashPlan's Code 42 cloud in Minneapolis, and kind of spin together anything that you need to. So yeah, sometimes it's IT strategy that says, for remote users, we need to go cloud. For everybody else, we want to keep it on-site. The on-site master, pretty much every large enterprise that I go into that wants to do cloud ends up going that way too. So you can have multi-destination, which we always recommend. CrashPlan was built to do this from the very beginning. We always believe in having your data in more than one location. So even if you send it to our cloud, having it on-site as well for really fast restores or whatever else, there's a lot of reasons to do this. Also for other purposes around legal holds. Maybe you have a legal department and they need to be able to restore things all the time on their own hardware or whatever else. With a hybrid cloud, you can kind of spin all that stuff together in one shot. So we have a lot of success stories with hybrid clouds. Genentech is a really good example of that. They have an on-site master actually on our appliance, believe it or not, in their data center. And then all of the Genentech data actually goes to our cloud. They actually pulled off something really neat when they first went with CrashPlan. They did a silent push install through Casper. How many of you guys use Jamf Casper Suite for managing Macs? All right. So they're our brethren in the Minneapolis area around enterprise Macs. And together I like to say that we're the Silicon Prairie. Get it? All right. So we've given them some of the keys to CrashPlan, and you can actually target policies based on backup completedness and all that. And there's some really good recipes about doing push installs of the CrashPlan client so it can automatically register that user and silently start backing them up without any intervention. So in Genentech's case, I think they pushed out something like 4,000 or 5,000 CrashPlan clients simultaneously. They just put it all out there. They let the data back up to our cloud for like a week or two. When most people were complete, then IT actually sent out an email and said, hey, everybody's been backed up with this thing called CrashPlan. Click here if you'd like more information on that. So if you have that, it's a really cool way to get your Casper and CrashPlan working together. So that's really fun. These other companies too, like BCG is a really big kind of global enterprise, but they definitely want to hold all of their own encryption keys, and security is a really, really big concern for them. So the hybrid cloud with that on-site master was perfect. And they're even using a local destination as well today. So deciding your cloud strategy. So the biggest thing is obviously any IT requirements or any other requirements around policy, regulation, just the vision around what you guys want to do with storage. And how you want to handle it too. Is it okay to have a business associates agreement with a cloud company to just hold all that data and have accounts there and stuff like that? Or do you need to kind of rearrange things to be more appropriate? And really figure out your data storage preference. Some enterprises are on-site, some are off-site, some are both, and really figure out even different business units. If you have a marketing department with really big files, maybe their requirement is on-site, but everybody else needs to be cloud. So you can kind of pull those together independently if you need to. And then really think about if there's any other legal or e-discovery kind of concerns around having everybody's quote-unquote backup or hard drive in the sky. If you need to do a lot of e-discovery and automated restores and stuff like that, having a local destination would really help. So that's something to think about too. So I'm at this point, I just went through all of our destinations. I can turn it over to questions, and don't just ask me stuff about cloud and whatever else. If you want to know things around specific CrashPlan features or you have questions or whatever else, I think we have 13 minutes. So yeah, go ahead.
In the example of your hybrid, do you have success stories with someone that has like large chunks of terabytes for their local store that also syncs to the cloud?
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat the question. Yeah. I'm going to repeat the question. So what's the success stories around really big data and syncing it from one destination to the cloud, right? In CrashPlan world, what we actually recommend is doing multiple destinations. So instead of backing up the backup and syncing one backup archive to another one, we basically just turn on multiple destinations and we let that CrashPlan client simultaneously stream its data to 2 of those destinations. So that way we can eliminate that one server being a single point of failure. That's how Apple can actually accomplish real-time DR and redundancy. So every Apple employee backs up here, and they also back up to Maiden, North Carolina. If either of those drops off the face of the planet, they're still connected in real time to one of them. What they did, and a lot of enterprises actually choose to do this, is they'll seed the second backup before they turn it on for their end users. And at that point, the CrashPlan client would go, oh, wow, my seeded archive has 98% of my data. I'm just going to move the last 2%, and then both of my archives are now 100%.
But in file size, terabytes,
It's all about your threshold for pain, right? How long can you wait before you get that data back? How much data are you creating and putting it up there? There's no real limitation in CrashPlan. If you have multi-terabytes going up to the cloud, it's probably going to take you more time than you're really interested in to get it back. But there's no real limitations in there for us. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Cloud service companies often show personal face to it, but as a business using CrashPlan, or if I were to use CrashPlan, let's say I did need to recover that terabyte worth of data, would I have to download it from the cloud, or is there a person I can call who can copy it off to a hard disk and overnight it to me?
Yeah, the restore to FedEx story? Sure. CrashPlan was engineered a little bit different than other cloud backup solutions. I'm thinking of Mozy, where the CrashPlan client itself can actually bring the data back and rehydrate it and decrypt it on the device itself, which is really important because if we logically see that there's 50 gigs on my MacBook Air here, but I've only needed to protect 25 gigs into the cloud, in that case, we only have to transmit the 25 gigs back and then turn it into the 50 gigs. So we save a lot of space in that case. And then the other part of your question is, what about the support, right? We have a fantastic customer champion team that can totally do that. And if you do need to restore it to a disk or whatever else, yeah, we can accomplish that. Wow. All right, we'll start in the front and then kind of go that way. Yeah, go ahead. Not today. So the question is, do you protect mobile devices? Currently today, our mobile device strategy is all about having ubiquitous access to the data that's already been protected on your laptops and giving you a really touch-friendly and secure way to see all of those files all the time. In the future, would we do it? Absolutely. I think, I'm not going to talk about future products, but you would see it sooner than you might guess. We are, however, really limited on the APIs that Apple gives us on the iOS platform. Basically, every app is siloed from each other, and I think the most any app could access is like your photos, like your camera roll, and maybe your contacts and something like that. So, but Code 42 as a company, we've always been about mobile and laptops, and obviously as these types of devices become more of a data creation platform, we would absolutely try and protect them. Absolutely. So the question is, can you access it? And that's why we have CrashPlan Mobile. How many of you guys are CrashPlan Green consumer users? Do you have the mobile app installed in your device? Yep. So you could basically, access anything that's been protected. We actually implemented what we call one-touch update. So if a new version on your laptop is actually pushed up to the cloud and backed up and protected, the mobile application will tell you, hey, there's a new version. Would you like this? And you can actually select the update button. Yeah, go ahead. Not today. So the question is bare metal restore. My philosophy usually as an enterprise guy is you want to buy a backup solution from a backup company, and you want to buy an imaging solution from an imaging company. On Mac specifically, there's a lot of stuff that Apple does. This MacBook Air, I couldn't take my OS and put it on a different one. So being able to provide that kind of functionality is difficult. Is it on our list of things to try and accomplish in a kind of unique way? Absolutely. So you'll see that. I think for the most part on Macs, all of your data is really in that user directory. So if you get that user directory back, you get most all of your data, I'd say 99%. There's some other things that we could maybe grab as well around application profiles and whatever else. So yeah, I could see us doing that sometime really soon. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, do we back up SQL in Exchange? So the answer is yes, asterisk. What CrashPlan was designed to do was essentially be agnostic to file type and file makeup. What we, in practice, we just see a bunch of bytes on an endpoint and we protect it. So the question around SQL and Exchange is being application aware. Can we stop that database? Can we stop Exchange momentarily? So the files and data that we're protecting can actually be in a writable format when you go to hit the restore button. And the answer is no, we never implemented that. We never really designed CrashPlan to be a server backup solution in that way. You can, however, use Exchange or SQL or whatever to dump itself to a flat file, and CrashPlan will actually see just the byte level differences between those flat files. So that's why it's an asterisk. Yeah. So the question is, can we limit CrashPlan on what interface and maybe even what wireless network it functions on? And the answer is absolutely. There it is. Right? So you can blacklist certain network interfaces, and you can even use a regular expression pattern. You could also do the same thing for wireless networks. Maybe you do a regular expression pattern that would match Verizon, MiFi, anything after that. So maybe CrashPlan wouldn't suck up a lot of Sprint 3G or 4G network bandwidth or whatever else. But yes, you can absolutely do that. You can also limit the bandwidth that CrashPlan clients consume. Just a little data point for you guys. As an enterprise engineer for CrashPlan, I always recommend bandwidth throttles as think of it as your emergency red button. CrashPlan client is actually limited on the CPU side. So within a given CPU window, by default, we're 20%, right? We have to do a lot of computational arithmetic around dedupe and compression and all that stuff. So we're kind of limited on the CPU anyway. But we enforce all of our policies in real time. So if you see bandwidth kind of going up and you need to control that, you can grab all those devices and then instantly push a bandwidth throttle to them, and then you'll watch them throttle back in real time. But yeah, great question. Yes?
You provide an API system that wants to build their own apps around this.
Yes. Question is, do we have an API? You bet. How many of you guys use CrashPlan Pro E? Have you seen our web console and it has all the statistics and everything? That was actually designed so that the stuff that we're doing in our UI is actually under the hood sort of an API call. So yeah, you can do a lot of things around our API. That's actually what Casper uses too, to be able to bring in that reporting data. Yeah, go ahead. We have no limits. It's actually configured by you as a policy. Do I want to create new versions of files every 15 minutes and then store those forever and ever, or do I want to start rolling them up? How long do I want to keep deleted files? I'm sure inside of your business or whatever you have some virtual paper shredder setting, so you can keep CrashPlan in line with your email or whatever else it is. Yeah, absolutely. But we technically have no limitations on the number of files, the number of versions, or how long we can actually keep deleted data. So that's it. Yeah. Talk to me offline. How's that? All right. Thank you, guys.